All right, let's jump right into this explainer and completely dismantle exactly why your habits might be failing. We're going to start deep inside the brain and work our way out to the exact tools you need to fix it. Look, if you've ever set a massive goal, downloaded some fancy new app, and then watched your motivation completely vanish within a week, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're diving into the real science of routine building, pulling together some incredible insights from productivity experts, cognitive behavioral research, and behavioral design. Now, we have all heard that popular 21-day habit myth, right? The whole just white knuckle it for 3 weeks and you're set idea. Well, actually, scratch that. Research from ToggleTrack proves that building routines requires serious, long-term structure, not just a brief 3-week burst of hype. Depending on the complexity of the habit and, frankly, the person, it can take anywhere from 18 up to 254 days. Think about that. That's over 8 months in some cases. Relying on pure grit and willpower for that long? It's basically a guaranteed recipe for burnout. So here is our roadmap for today to get us on track. First, we'll tackle the willpower myth. Second, executive function. Third, building systems. Fourth, analog versus digital tracking. Fifth, choosing your digital tools. And finally, surviving the inevitable slip-ups. Moving right along to section 1, the willpower myth, and why we really need to stop just trying harder. Here's the hard truth. Trying harder is simply not a strategy. Most self-help advice out there completely fails because it assumes you have a baseline level of executive function that just might not be reliably present for everyone. For folks who really struggle to start tasks, especially individuals with ADHD, relying on willpower is a totally losing battle. Why? Because it assumes you have this loud internal voice prompting you, saying, hey, it's time to switch tasks right now, and that voice simply might not be there. Instead of torturing yourself with internal discipline, what actually works are foolproof external systems that do the remembering, the prompting, and the timing for you. Which brings us nicely to section 2, executive function and habits, or what we can call the brain's scaffolding. The absolute crucial point here is that deficits in executive function make organizing and initiating even simple routines feel incredibly overwhelming. It's like having a massive, complex puzzle, but no picture on the box to guide you. Research actually shows that around 90% of children with ADHD have executive function deficits. And yeah, this carries right over into adulthood. Without external scaffolding to lean on, keeping track of multiple tasks or starting a mundane chore can feel incredibly chaotic. Your brain is literally wired to seek out novelty, which makes boring routines feel like walking through thick mud. And this leads us to a really fascinating concept that perfectly explains why those generic 1-hour time blocks fail for so many of us. It's called time blindness. It means your brain literally loses the physical sensation of time passing. An hour can feel like 15 minutes or totally vice versa. And listen, this is not carelessness. It's a genuine perception issue. That is exactly why utilizing 15 to 25-minute external visual timers is a literal game changer. The physical timer creates the boundary your brain just isn't generating on its own. You assign one task, set a visible timer, and you just work until it buzzes. Simple as that. All right, section 3, building systems over willpower and physically designing your environment for success. Knowing that our internal cues can and will fail us, we have to build foolproof external systems right into our physical environment. If intense focus isn't a given for you, we have to make it the path of least resistance. We can utilize this amazing, proven framework inspired by the Atoms app, which leans heavily on James Clear's work, to completely redesign your space. First, make it obvious. Set up a visible launchpad right by the door for your keys and wallet so you literally never have to remember where they are. Next, make it easy. Use the just 5 minutes rule to drastically lower the activation energy it takes to start a daunting task. If your phone is your kryptonite, physically remove it from the room. We want to drastically lower the hurdles to doing the right thing and raise the hurdles for doing the wrong thing. Let's pivot to section 4. Analog versus digital tracking, and what we call the momentum paradox. Okay, let's dive into this super fascinating debate. Should you track habits with a classic pen and paper or utilize smart devices? Now, you might automatically think a high-tech app is always better, but the data tells a really surprising story. Let's look at the actual friction involved. An app requires anywhere from 22 to 94 seconds of unlocking your phone, swiping through menus, and tapping tiny buttons. And during that time, you're probably going to get distracted by an incoming text message. Meanwhile, an analog journal takes about 8 seconds. You pick up a pen, make a single satisfying mark, and you're done. Digital habit trackers often introduce massive friction and data overload, whereas analog tracking requires absolutely zero boot-up time. And the hard data absolutely backs this up. Users utilizing good old pen and paper see a massive 68% 30-day adherence rate. Compare that to just 41% for those relying on digital notifications. Crazy, right? Why is that? Because physical handwriting actually activates your motor cortex and hippocampus simultaneously. It's a phenomenon called embodied encoding. Plus, an analog notebook has zero ambient interruption, no pings, no software updates, and no algorithms fighting for your attention. Okay, section 5, choosing your digital tools. It's all about finding the right app for your specific brain. Now, don't get me wrong, tech is definitely not the enemy. Once you've physically built those neurological pathways with paper, it's time to strategically introduce technology. But the absolute crucial point to remember is that hybrid tracking initially dilutes your focus. In fact, a behavioral study showed that splitting your attention between analog and digital increases cognitive load and completely ruins your continuity. So establish stable momentum offline first. Stick to paper for the first 14 days. Then, on day 15, if the habit feels somewhat automatic before you even reach for your journal, then and only then, you can add one digital element, like a calendar reminder. Oh, and pro tip, never import your past analog logs into your new app. It entirely breaks the psychological continuity. When you are finally ready to go digital, you've got to match the tool to your brain's unique wiring. Because everyone's primary attention architecture is so vastly different, we can actually categorize the huge sea of habit apps out there to perfectly match your personality. Do you need gamified quests to stay hooked? Habitica literally turns your to-do list into a retro role-playing game. Do you need heavy financial consequences to get off the couch? Stick K will literally take your money and donate it to charity if you miss a day. No joke. If you just want pure, beautiful visual simplicity, every day is fantastic for that. And if you need to tackle that time blindness we talked about earlier, Toggle Track is absolutely perfect for setting very specific time limit goals. Finally, section 6, surviving the slip-ups and how to completely reframe failure. Let's get real for a second. Even if you have the best systems in the world, the most aesthetic notebook, and the absolute perfect app, you will eventually miss a day. It happens to all of us. Which brings us to the underlying psychology of failure. It is so absolutely crucial to understand that it is the guilt, not the actual missed day itself, that destroys your trajectory. We call this the abstinence violation effect. It's that dramatic little voice in your head that goes, well, I missed my morning run today, so I've completely failed at life. I might as well order a giant pizza and literally never go to the gym ever again. It totally hijacks your brain's recovery process and turns a tiny minor detour into a full-blown relapse. To defeat this toxic all-or-nothing trap, we have to totally fundamentally change how we measure success. Ditch the endless streaks that reset to zero the second you blink. Instead, prioritize custom chains. Apps like Way of Life actually allow you to intentionally skip days without resetting your hard-earned progress, which is just incredibly liberating. You have to start treating your energy like a fluctuating battery, not an endless resource. Map out your high and low energy windows during the week and match your task difficulty to your natural rhythm, rather than demanding robotic, flawless perfection every single day. By combining a solid understanding of your own executive function with the raw, frictionless simplicity of analog tracking, and then eventually layering in the strategic use of digital tools, you hold the power to build serious, lasting momentum starting right now. Remember, you aren't lacking willpower, you just need a better scaffolding. So taking a hard look at your routines today, what small, 5-minute vote are you going to cast for your future self? Start right there, make it blatantly obvious, and let the external systems do the heavy lifting for you. But this leaves us with one final, incredibly vital question to ponder. If you successfully externalize all your habits and get them running on autopilot, what is your brain finally going to have the freed up energy to create next?